I saw beam of light everywhere. And then the moment I saw those beam of lights, I thought to myself, the rapture is here.
It's like in the corner of her eyes, seeing like a little boy or like a little ghost going to one of the rooms.
It's a journey in the self too, because you find your intuition and discernment, but we got to realize that there's duality here.
Maybe 6 or 8 times over the course of a couple of years, I would wake up to this dark figure standing at the foot of my bed.
The green agenda is the obliteration of the human soul. They use children to do that. They can't do it without children. They need pure souls, and you cannot conduct a black mass without pure souls.
When you see that there's darkness, Satan exists, or that there's evil on earth, or that there's actually demons or whatever, I think it's a frequency when we're all together, really.
The light started like flicking off and on. So it was like a toddler, like a 5-year-old or 4-year-old.
At one point it started to gruff. I heard howls. I heard like this puffing sound, and I was petrified. I had no idea what it was.
Well, the demons are here, and they are going to steal the children.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to Apocalyptic Anomalies, where we shine light on the shadows to unlock all the secrets of our universe. I'm your host, Abner J. Valdez. If you have a crazy experience or a story you want to share on the show, email me at apocalypticanomalies@gmail.com. That's apocalypticanomalies@gmail.com. Or you can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. Either way works for me. Just get in contact with me. Today on the show, we have Christian. He comes on the show and talks to us about his paranormal and UFO experiences. This is part 1 of a 2-part episode series. So let's get into the show right now. Sit back and enjoy the show. All right. So welcome to the show, Christian. Before we start the show, can you give the audience a brief bio about yourself, please?
I'm 55, and I've been interested in the paranormal for as long as I could remember, ever since I was little. Basically, it went from where I was interested in monsters and dinosaurs, and then it started hearing about Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and stuff, and it just went from there. And then I actually ended up started having my own experiences. And as I got older, some friends of mine, they formed they had a ghost hunting group that they would go and investigate places, and I started going with them. And we had a few things go on there, but most of my experiences haven't necessarily been during those investigations, but just happening. I don't know how else to really elaborate on that, but I had something that basically was attached to me for a good part of my life, from when I was a kid up until about 2005, right about the time that I left the house. When my ex-wife and I were getting a divorce and I left, it seems to have stayed at the house. So I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but it seems to be when that stopped. But I mean, I still have experiences. It's just I don't have anything living with me. Whereas before I would have stuff happening during the night in my house, or even during the day. And all that stuff just seemed to kind of stop. Everything I've had happen to me since, or anything I've experienced since, has been at other people's houses, if I've been in different buildings, work, things like that. But I mean, I've experienced everything from seeing things move on their own, where, nobody is there to move it, can't explain how it's done, to as ridiculous as it sounds, glowing in the dark. And I'm not talking like glowing, like emitting light, but like we were in a pitch black room. You couldn't even see your hand 2 inches from your face. It would just absolutely no light whatsoever in that room if you had the lights turned out. And just all of a sudden, and this was during an investigation that we did at a theater in my hometown. I can go into a little bit of background about that
Yes, please.
building as well. But but I mean, like this case, they were doing a public investigation, and they had a lot of people that showed up for it, and they just paired us off into 4 groups. And our group had like 10 or 12 people in it. And we're sitting there in this room, and like kind of like everybody's kind of like horseshoed. Like there's a cabinet in front of me, and then like everybody's from around the cabinet, and then like I'm kind of like in the middle in a horseshoe shape, and there's a few other people standing around behind us and that. But everybody started like oohing and ahhing and like making comments that they couldn't believe what they were seeing, and you know what's going on and that. And I'm kind of looking around, I'm not seeing anything, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And my friend just kind of nudges my leg, and I look over, I'm like, what? And he goes, look at your hands. And so I look at myself, and it's as if sunlight was hitting any exposed skin. My face, my neck, my arms, my hands. It was as if I was standing in sunlight outside. And I've never heard of that happening before. They've never heard of that happening before. I've been trying to find out for years now, and it just hasn't. I haven't been able to find anything about it. I've tried asking and asking other people if they've, like experts or other people online and that do this sort of thing, if they've ever experienced it, heard of it, what it could possibly be. And they've never heard of it. I mean, they know that people have bioluminescence to a degree, but it takes special photo equipment to see it. I mean, it would be kind of like looking at the aura, but it's not even as bright as the aura. So I've just never been able to figure it out. I've had people suggest, "Oh, your friend's playing a joke on you." Like they come up and they put their hands on your arms and that way you would glow in the dark. And I was like, no, it's nothing like that, because for them to do that, there would have been streaks and spots that didn't get touched. But I mean, like, because when I went like this, it was all uniform. I mean, there were no streaks, no marks, no nothing. It was just literally just as if I'm looking at my arms right now. And again, like I said, it's not from projecting light like a light stick or anything, but it was just a weird thing. And it's not like I didn't feel any different. I was the last one to notice out of this room of 10 to 12 people. And, people still talk about it, now, like they'll ask me if I found any reason why that would have happened or any kind of explanation for it. I just haven't been able to figure it out. In the same building, we used to do community theater. And when I did community theater there from 2000 to 2010, and the building it was built in 1917, and it was, for most of the time when I was growing up, it was a movie theater, but it was a lot more than that when they first built it. I mean, it was a union hall, it was a stage theater, they just use it for everything. It was like the centerpiece of town. And we started doing community theater there and that. And you would see things that you shouldn't have been seeing. Like I've seen full apparitions that literally, as they were walking away, just disappear into thin air. Um, we've had during rehearsals doing children's shows where all the parents are sitting out watching this rehearse and everything, and you hear running coming down through the auditorium, and it sounds like bare feet, wet bare feet running through. And you go to look because you're expecting, the sound is so close, you're expecting to see a kid or somebody. There's nobody there. People have been touched there. I've had my hand grazed walking around. I know one of the first times I did anything with them there, um, they had me kind of sit by myself for a while in one of the dressing rooms of the theater, and everybody just kind of stepped out of camera range, and they waited for the dust and everything to settle. And I was surrounded by orbs. They used to have it online. They don't have it on anymore, but you could see where, and it wasn't insects that were flying, or because it was too cold of the year for that. The dust had already settled because we waited quite a bit for that to happen. But you just see like moving around and turning, going up and then coming down, and then moving around and coming back up again, and just moving in ways that it wasn't dust. And as far as, like I said, bugs, it was, I think it was like in January, middle of January, that happened. We've got EVP there. We've, like you could be on the stage and you'll see, or you won't see, but you'll hear either the seats will go down, like somebody sitting down in it, like pulling the seat down to sit down, or getting up and the seat just flops up and, just makes that noise. That happens periodically. There's just been so many things that have gone on there. Me and another person were in the building. We're the only two people in the building, getting ready for a show, getting like material and stuff out to finish up building sets. And we heard someone walk in through the lobby and sound like they were setting stuff on like boxes on the counter and talking. And when we went to go down to see who it was, because it was like just one flight of steps, there was nobody in there, and the doors were still locked, and there was no boxes or anything. I've seen shadow people in that building. Once during a performance, I saw it from backstage. They were up in the what's called the rope deck. And I just saw somebody moving around up there. I thought it was one of our friends that helps out with the show and stuff, but I couldn't figure out why he would be up there. And I had asked the director about it, and she was like, "Yeah, he's not up there. He's right across from us on the other side of the stage." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, okay, yeah, okay, that's fine. Nobody's ever been hurt, but there's just been some like just really strange things like that. And the weirdest thing that happened at that place was that I glue in the dark. That's the only way I can describe it. I tell other friends and family this kind of stuff and things that have happened to me and I've experienced, and they just some of them will tend to think that, "Oh, you're never going to make me believe anything like that." And it's like, well, you don't have to. You asked me, I'm telling you. My job isn't to make you believe it. I'm just telling you what I experienced. Whether or not you want to believe it or not, it's up to you. But like I always tell them, even if you don't believe in this sort of thing, until you actually do experience or have an experience of some sort, you won't believe it, because until you have an experience that you absolutely positively cannot explain away, what other option is there? Like I said, I've experienced that type of stuff. I experienced doors opening and closing on their own. One investigation I went on with these friends of mine, my best friend at the time, he passed away a few years ago. So, but he and I were walking around and in the building, through the hallways, and everybody else was at the other end of that floor, and just kind of watching the video monitors and stuff to see if they could pick anything up. And as we're walking back from the main door down the hallway, we heard all the doors shut that like are down the hall as we passed them. And then we got to the end of the hall, and we thought, well, we'll sit on the end on this bench and see if we can hear the doors open and close and see if we can catch them opening and closing on their own. And so we're sitting there and just sitting there. The hallway's dark. It's all windy outside, and trees are casting all kinds of shadows, blowing around in the wind. And we're sitting there kind of whispering back and forth, not wanting to be loud. And then all of a sudden we hear some sigh. And it's like we were sitting on the very edge of, like, the hallway went this way. And then, like, right here, the other hallway that we go into the main door goes this way. So we're like sitting right on that corner of that junction. And it sounded like somebody was right on the other side of that corner. And they had just went, we both looked at each other, and I asked him, I was like, did you hear that? And he said, oh yeah, I heard that. And I'm not going to lie, I got scared. I got up and I ran to everybody else, and he was right behind me. And everyone's like, what happened? You guys look like you've seen a ghost. And I was like, now's not the time to joke about that. And so we told them what happened and everything. And they're wanting to go over and go through all the equipment and see if they, picked anything up on that. And we're like, well, we're going to try something. So me and him, we walk back out in the hallway. And just as we're about to go down again, he says something to it. I want to say he was taunting it, but he really wasn't taunting it. He was like, okay, we're going to he like had an EMF reader, and he was like, okay, we're going to get something this time, if you come around. And we hear something else. Now, I heard a whisper of his name right behind my ear. He heard a sigh. All I know is, like, in a snap of her fingers, and we were both backs up against the wall facing where we were just from. And he goes, did you hear that? I said, yeah. He goes, it sighed again. I was like, no. I said, it said your name. I said, it said it right in my ear. And he just looked at me, and his eyes got real big. He goes, are you shitting me? And I was like, no. He goes, oh, I don't like that. And so we're just standing there, and we're trying to, wait and see if anything else happens, and it doesn't. So we go back to where everybody's grouped up at, and we go back and tell them what happened, and they keep trying to find stuff, and they're not picking anything up on any of the cameras or any of the microphones. We've got motion sensors set up at certain spots that if there was anything moving other than us, it should have picked up. It just wasn't picking anything up. And then that night, I mean, the girl that called us out there to check the building out, she kind of wanted to sit in a room, this one specific room. It was one of the offices, and she just wanted us to have a video camera on her. And because she was thinking that because she was always being touched and always hearing the whispers and stuff, that she felt that it would communicate with her in some way. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, after like 10, 15 minutes, she's jumping and kind of like yelping in pain and everything, and like grabbing at her back and her side. And we're like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she's like, it's something's, it's poking me. It hurts. It hurts, And so we hurried up and got her out of there, and checked her out. Everybody's checking her out, making sure she didn't have any, we were looking for scratches and any kind of marks or anything. And there were a few scratches, but, couldn't tell what it was actually from. It didn't look like it was like claw marks or nail marks or anything. It just looked like a scratch, but it was already starting to welt and turn pink. And, that was, that was 2005. Personal experiences I've had were just with me. I always tell people that I know, especially if they bring it up, under no circumstances will I be in the same building as a Ouija board that's being used. I won't do it. When we were kids, me and some of the neighborhood kids made a Ouija board out of pieces of paper with the alphabet and everything, and we set it all up on a smooth surface with a glass, and we didn't think that we were really getting any. I mean, we just thought it was us moving it, so we didn't think anything of it. But then after that, I started having stuff happen in my house, and that's pretty much when I figured something attached itself to me. I didn't realize it then, but that's the only thing I could think of, because I also had I had picked up a book at a yard sale. It was a encyclopedia of demonology, witchcraft, and spells, something else. I can't remember what. But anyway, that's what it was.
Can I stop you right there? I just wanted to ask a question, right? Because I had a question here written down. I'm writing down questions as you're talking. Very interesting stuff, by the way. So I wanted to ask you, what was the first time, in your opinion or in your experience, that something happened to you? Was that when you started playing with the Ouija board?
No, I kind of would notice things moving on their own. I always thought it was just my imagination, because it's not like it's not like it would be a door opening and closing on its own or anything like that. It was more like a very slight, very subtle movement, noticeable, but not something like say a doll or something lifting its arm up in the air and bringing it down. Maybe it moved it like just a hair, just something that was almost not noticeable.
And how old were you when this first started happening to you?
I started noticing that type of stuff. I was probably about 7 or 8. I just would have things like that happen periodically, nothing serious, nothing major. And then we had that stuff with the playing around with the Ouija board and having that book. And I had that book for a while, and I wasn't doing anything with it as far as like reading aloud from it or trying out reading any of the spells or anything. I was just more interested in the definitions of the different types of demons, the different types of poltergeist and hauntings and stuff, that sort of thing. I wasn't interested in the witchcraft or anything, but and that just seems like where everything really first started to be more noticeable. More active. Shortly after that, I suffer from sleep paralysis periodically, more often when I was younger. But the thing was I could never open my eyes. I could never speak. I couldn't even so much as roll over. I couldn't even kick the blanket off of me or nothing. I'd be aware that I was under the blankets, that because I always slept with the radio on. It had that one of those clock radios, and I could always see the light from the numbers and that through my eyelids, and I can hear stuff around me. But this night I woke up feeling a little nauseous because my it just felt like something was real heavy on my chest, but it was swirling, and it was swirling in a way like it was like it was a drain that was leading right into my chest, like right into the middle of my chest. And just before I was able to move, I heard real deep, just real deep guttural laughter. And there was nobody there that, would have that type of a laugh. So that kind of freaked me out. But
if you
there
can
is
give
one
us,
thing.
sorry to cut you off, if you can give us like a sound of what that would sound like, what did that sound like to you when you heard it?
Oh, just like kind of like but that's not even as deep as it was. I mean, this was just so deep that I was able to feel it. Like how you feel the bass at a concert. That I felt it in my chest when it was happening and that. But one thing I did forget is that when I was younger and I started seeing things move in that, I did have one incident that that we weren't able to really, half my family thinks that it's my wild imagination, and other half think that it was just by pure luck. But I woke up in the middle of the night. I was first grade, second grade, and my throat was all sore. Like I was coming down with a cold. So I went ahead and went, got a drink of water and came back. And when I came back, there were flames shooting up from my bed up to my ceiling. So I went and I woke up my parents, and my dad drug the mattress in the shower and soaked it down to where it wasn't even smoking anymore. It was just out. And then the next morning he took it out and he put it in the dumpster. A couple of days later, the dumpster caught fire, and police department were called out, and they put it out and everything. But yeah, he had hosed that down to where it wasn't even smoldering anymore, and we left it sit overnight. There was no heat coming from it or anything. But the thing is that I had a little reading lamp on my headboard, and it had fallen down, and the lampshade had come off it, and the light bulb had burned through the top mattress down to the box springs. And I guess apparently that's what made my throat sore, is because the smoke in the room. And then when I got up, it just burst into flames. Don't know why that would have happened. As far as don't know why anything would have done that, because there wasn't really anything that I had or owned, or other than watching the old 1970s Bigfoot documentaries and the Loch Ness Monster documentaries and stuff. Didn't really have a lot of anything like that in my house or anything. And really, I'm the only one in my family that's real, at that time, just anything monsters, I would just eat up, monster movies and then all those types of movies and stuff. But as far as like, just nothing ever really seemed to have happened to have like kicked something like that off. So, but that was always something that's remained in my memory and that as well. So I don't know. I don't know if that was actually paranormal or not, but it always just seems strange to me that the mattress later burst into flames a couple days after it had been soaked down, completely with water. So I don't know. But and the time from that point on, it was really just mainly every once in a while I might hear something or think that I heard something, and I would just do everything I could to kind of, put it out of my mind. And because when I was a kid, I was terrified of the dark, and like nobody understood why, and it was just because of stuff like that that would always go on. I I suffered from night terrors to begin with, and then from all this other stuff that would occasionally happen. It just didn't make it any better for me when I was growing up. But I've had things. I've seen things happen in Virginia. Just basic things like doors opening and closing on their own. And at the time, I was in the Navy and was out there for school and visiting a friend's house. And he was like, "Oh, that's always happened ever since I was a kid." He goes, we just ignore it." It's like, okay, easy for you to say. That doesn't happen to me every day. But periodically it would. But I just wasn't used to it happening away from home or anything. And then just when I was married, the house we lived in, it had stuff that was going on. We had what are they called? Sensors for all the doors and windows. So anytime you open a door or window, it would beep. It would, hear beep, beep, beep. So you always knew somebody was coming in or leaving. And I come home from work one night, and I'm walking through the garage, and the door leading into the house is kind of like swinging open, as if somebody had just walked through there, but they didn't shut the door all the way. So I come walking in, and everybody's in our bedroom. My ex-wife, her two boys, were just sitting in there. I think my niece was there too. I can't remember if she was there that time. But so I go in there and I ask what's going on, and they're like all, oh, you don't, we're in here, we're all doing our thing for the day, and like an hour ago, we heard something break broken glass. We looked all over, couldn't find it, and then we started hearing the alarms go off and stuff. And I was like, well, somebody didn't shut the door going to the garage. When I come in, it was swinging open, just barely, but like they didn't shut it all the way. And they're like, we've been in here for the last hour and it was shut. And so I was like, okay, so you think somebody's in the house? And they're like, no, we know nobody's here. So I'm looking all over for any broken glass. Couldn't find anything. And a few months later, my stepson had got grounded to his room. And what he did when he got grounded was he'd get pissed and have a lot of energy. So he would rearrange the room. He would clean it, rearrange it, so he was doing that, and him and his brother were given by their uncle bottles that were filled with different colored sand and then capped off with wax. And they had those for years. Well, when he was moving stuff around, he saw it, and he didn't touch it yet, but he had noticed that the top from like mid neck was gone, and there was no sand or anything around it or anything, and those things were filled literally up to like where the lip would be for the bottle cap, and so there should have been some kind of sand, but we looked all over in that room for a couple years and never found any glass. We never found the top of the bottle, and that was another thing. And then one time I was sitting in there in the living room, and I was getting ready to turn the computer on, and I was the only one at home. The kids were down the street at their friends, and then my ex-wife was at her parents' house. So I had the TV on, and I was getting ready to turn the computer on, and I heard the beep 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 of the door open, and all I didn't see, I didn't turn back to look or anything, but I saw in the reflection of the computer screen, which was still off, somebody running through the hallway, and I heard them running through the hallway. So I thought it was one of the kids, and I was like, you can't keep running in and out like this. You either got to stay in or stay out. It's too hot to be letting all the air out. And there was nobody in there. I went all around the house. I checked the garage. I checked everywhere. Nobody was in the house. And about 20 minutes later, they come back in, and I asked them, I'm like, why are you guys running in and out? They're like, what are you talking about? We haven't been home in hours. And so there was that. And then there was another one that happened there that I was, me and my ex-wife were laying in bed and getting ready to go to sleep. And we heard a sigh come from underneath the bed. And I know she heard it because when I opened my eyes, her eyes were like wide like saucers. And I was like, did you hear that? And she's like, cut it out. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. And I said, I don't know how you think I would, because there wasn't even enough room underneath the bed for either of the kids to get underneath the bed to prank us like that. So it wouldn't have been me or anybody else I knew that would be doing that. But so that's when she kind of started getting paranoid. Then the one thing that cinched it for her was we all were sitting down to eat dinner, me and the ex-wife and the two boys, and 5 minutes after we're eating, all of a sudden the stereo in the boys' room, the little boom box, turns on full blast. And I'm like, what, I'm thinking that they're playing around and everything. So I go in there and I go to turn off the radio, but the radio's not even on. So I look, and it's the tape player part the play has been pushed. And I'm thinking, okay, they rewound it and just let it run all that time until it got to a song and it just started blaring. I popped it open, I pulled out the tape and looked at it. It was in the middle of the tape. There wasn't, it hadn't been rewound. We were never able to figure out that either. Because, I could tell when I brought it up to them, when I got down there, when I got back in the kitchen, that they were just as mystified as we were. They were like, what are you talking about? One night we decided to let a tape player just hit record and just let it record, and we all left the house for an hour and came back and we listened to it. You can hear what it sounds like, somebody walking up and down the hallway. We had wood floors. It sounds like somebody walks by it, like their pant leg scrapes against it. It sounds like somebody's bouncing a ball down the hall. You can vaguely hear a little bit of it was like just chatter, but it was just all mumbled because you just couldn't make out anything. That's about when my ex-wife first, she just started like, okay, well, maybe something weird is going on, because she had started noticing that you set something down, turn around to grab something else, and then turn right back around to grab it, gone. Could be keys, a fork, spoon, and then like a couple hours later, you walk right by there and it's right back where you left it, but it wasn't there a minute ago. So we had that type of stuff going on. They won't tell me if they still were having anything go on after I had moved out. I've asked them a few times, but they won't answer. So I don't know if something happened that just scared the hell out of them and they just don't want to talk about it or what. I know one night we were woke up in the middle of the night from both boys screaming and running down the hall, calling for me. They said that they had seen like somebody's headlights hit the windows and shone down the hallway, and they saw a shadow of somebody standing in their doorway. And this is like about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And they were terrified. I mean, they weren't going to be satisfied until I looked all over the house, in the garage, and went out and walked around the house to make sure they weren't hiding outside or anything. I took the dogs with me and everything. Dogs didn't notice anything. They didn't react to nothing. The neighbor dogs, they weren't barking. Where if anybody was running around in the backyards, they'd have been barking their heads off. And they were silent. So they actually started barking when I went around. So, but I mean, just a lot of weird things like that. And it just seems like it just kept happening as I was getting older, and just the older I got, it seemed like the weirder things were getting. I'm just trying to think of just some stuff.
So can I ask you a question?
Oh yeah, sure.
So yeah, do you think this is something that was hereditary, or like you said, something that might have clinged on to you when you started kind of messing with the board? Do you think it's something that follows you?
I think it was something that just kind of clinged on to me. There was one incident that I remember when I was a kid, but whether or not it was just probably just something to do with an old house. I remember my grandmother went to yell out the window to my dad and grandfather. They were going to the store and she was wanting to tell them to grab something else and that she had forgot. So she opened the window and put her hands on the windowsill and kind of leaned so they could hear her. And the window just slammed down on her hands. And we couldn't get them up. We couldn't get the window up off her hands. It took both my dad and my grandfather to pull the window up off of her hands. And broke two of her fingers on the one hand, and just basically just left a bunch of bruising on all the others. But that's about the closest thing I remember from like the first thing that was weird that I can say that I've witnessed. But whether or not it was paranormal or not, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't remember anybody on that side of the family ever talking about anything happening with them or before or since. Mom and my aunts lived in a house in town that they don't talk about too much of it, but the one thing that sticks out in their mind was that my cousin was not old enough to walk or crawl. About the only thing she could do was sit up on her own. And they put her in her crib, and then they went downstairs. And when they got downstairs, she was sitting downstairs. And they couldn't figure that out. And today they still talk about that, but they just, and like I said, other things have happened there, but they just don't talk about it. So it could very well be something that was hereditary, but for life of me, I really don't know. I mean, other than that thing with my grandmother, that was about the earliest weird thing that I can remember ever experiencing. But as far as everything else I could say, okay, yeah, this was paranormal because it was voices that I shouldn't have even been hearing. Um, things moved that shouldn't have been moving. Um, just things like that. Uh, when I was doing community theater, um, two of the people were kind of like they were in control of the building. So like we would go there and get together there and just like we'd do like I can't think of the name, but where everybody brings a different dish or something. And
Potluck.
yeah, potluck. And so we would, go and do stuff like that. And then somebody decided that they were watching the movie Halloween and decided, or it dawned on them that really what all they're doing is it's just a game of hide and seek. And so he came up with some rules and stuff, and we started playing Halloween hide and seek. And it was something that we all loved to play. Everybody got a good exercise because, like, you're getting chased full speed up and down three stories down in the basement and running around and stuff, crawling on your stomach trying to hide and just all kinds of different things. And so everybody liked to play it for their own reasons. And my ex-girlfriend at the time, she wasn't too, she was kind of on not really believing anything of like the ghost stuff or anything. She was interested in like watching ghost hunters and stuff, but it wasn't like she necessarily believed any of it. She and I were kind of like sticking together because she didn't know her way around the building at the time. And so I was just kind of like helping her get used to it. And we ran through the lobby and ducked in just past the lobby and into going towards entering the auditorium because somebody else was getting chased and they were coming into the lobby. So we kind of like hid on either side of the entrance leading into the auditorium. And there's the heavy drapes, real heavy velvet drapes that acted as a door. And so we figured, well, they're not going to see us, so they shouldn't come through here. No sooner than we both back up against either side there, than those curtains just push out and apart as if somebody's walking through them, but there's nobody there. And she kind of had something where she was hiding in the ladies' bathroom and she was the only one in there, but she thought I had come in there because at the time I was it. And she thought I was it, and that, because she thought I was breathing heavy to try to scare whoever was in there. I was like, no, I never went in there. That was the one place I didn't go. But and she's had other things like that go on as well, other times that we played. But I mean, like when we've played, I've seen shadow people get up and walk over and duck. So I think that it's somebody that's hiding from me. So I go up and there's nobody there. And like with that room that was pitch black where I glowed in the dark, there's people that were there that won't go into the building anymore because of that. It freaked them out so much. And honestly, I wasn't too thrilled with it myself, to be honest. But everybody knows that I don't like going into that room. We call it the marquee room because that's where it's used for storage. It's right underneath the balcony. And then it's where they keep all the marquee letters and stuff. And we would, everybody would try to go and hide in there because they knew I wouldn't go in there if I was it. And I had one night was walking by the door, the entrance to it, and I heard a bunch of boxes moving. And I was like, oh, I hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you, and I'm going to get you. And then about that time, I heard the scorekeeper yell, time, everybody's out of the building, which you either, Michael Myers, who was the person that was it, either had to catch somebody to win, or everybody had to make it outside the back door by the stage. And she yelled that, and I stopped, and I'm trying so hard to see if there's anybody in there, and it's just too black, too dark. I can't see anything. So then I walk over to the edge of the balcony, and I yell across over the railing if she's sure everybody's out there. So she did a head count, and she said, yeah. About the time that she got the word "yeah" out, I was already down on the ground level, running down to the stage and that to meet with them. But it got to a point where I was getting more and more braver, and I would see somebody ducking, and so I'd go up there, and I'd walk through there, and I'm like, this isn't cool. Don't be doing this, because I don't like it up here and all that. And there was never anybody up there. But it's just weird things. And like during shows, if you're out in the audience watching, you could see, you could visibly see with your naked eye, you could see orbs come down to the stage. Sometimes they'd come down and they just kind of circle around the stage, or they'd circle around somebody specific, but it was never anything that was distracting to the actors on stage or anything. We would have sets built where we would have pictures hanging, and they never would fall or anything. And then right in the middle of an intermission, or just as a scene is over and there's a pause and everything going on, picture would fall right off. And it just, we could never understand it, because we usually used more than like one nail or whatever, or a little something. We were a little bit more secure with them, because sometimes depending on if they stomped around or up the steps, if there were steps, it would knock that stuff down. But just weird stuff. We had like an old saloon door type thing set up, and during a performance, nobody came through it, but the door opened and closed. It's like everybody, including the people on stage, all kind of looked over to see who, nobody's supposed to be out here yet. Who's coming out here? And nobody's there. Even the people in the audience are like, how'd they do that? But, and it wasn't even supposed to be a creepy show or anything, it just one of those things that would periodically happen. During rehearsals.
So I want to go back to, I'm sorry to cut you off. This is very interesting stuff. I want to go back to that Ouija board incident, right? Question about that. What are your thoughts on the Ouija board? Because I've heard a lot of things, and, my mom always told me growing up, don't play with those boards. You shouldn't be talking to spirits. So what are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious to know.
My personal opinion about them, they're not a game. I know that they're marketed that way, but you're talking about opening up a portal and allowing something, requesting something else to come through to communicate with. Most people just think that all you do is just bring out the little planchette thing, and everybody barely touches it and asks their question, and it goes on and on. But if you don't end the session by saying goodbye, or saying, okay, I'm done now, goodbye, you're leaving that thing to attached to you, to somebody else, to the building, uh, whatever, and you don't know what's going on there. Most people, if they're not, if they're not very knowledgeable about any of that stuff or any of this paranormal stuff, they could really be causing themselves and others a lot of problems. And I, again, I know that's just stuff that just sounds silly, and oh, you believe in that stuff. Well, I have to. I mean, I've experienced this stuff. When you experience this stuff, it's not something like, did I really just see that? If you ask yourself that question, you're trying to, like, you're just asking yourself, like, am I awake right now? Is this real life? Because you've seen it. It's the same as walking outside and saying it's a nice sunny day, the sky is blue. These are things that without having to be told, that once you see it, it's real. You don't have to be convinced of it. You don't have to be told that it's real. Once you see it, And as far as I've known people that thought it was all a game and jokes, and most of them have had things happen to them. They've had things attached to them. They've had things happen to them. It's just they try to figure out what was the catalyst for it, and that's always the last thing that they ever think of, because they just never took it seriously. A lot of people think that a Ouija board wasn't created until the 1950s by Parker Brothers, but they've been around and been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, mainly in witchcraft, whether that be black magic, just magic in general. But if you don't have an understanding of using it, you really shouldn't be touching it. When it comes to any kind of tools of witchcraft or the paranormal, that's my biggest takeaway, is that if you're not familiar with the tool, don't use it. Don't attempt to use it, because you're just gonna make things worse. People that have, not using a Ouija board, but by just using whatever spells or whatever that they've read in books, open a portal, and having no idea how to close it once they've figured they've opened it and got it open.
Yeah, I can definitely say that words have power, So you might manifest something you don't know. And I feel like, from my opinion, from what you're telling me, it almost feels like your spirit, when you were a young boy, your innocence, playing with a simple toy or something, it seems like you almost opened a portal into a different dimension, and you didn't close the portal.
Exactly, because
because you're supposed to say,
yeah, and I
goodbye.
never realized that with it. That's the main thing with that experience, was that I had never heard. And when I was always around other friends and cousins and stuff that always messed with those things. They might have brought them out, but we never actually used them, except maybe like once or twice. And even then, it was just nothing ever really happened. Nobody really took it seriously enough to really do anything to make it work. But I had no idea that you were supposed to, that literally what it's doing is it's opening a portal, and to operate it safely, you're supposed to close it. And that, I think I was well into my adulthood before I ever even heard about that.
Thank you for watching the show, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. And remember, this is part 1 of a 2-part episode series. Remember to also share the show, because that's the only way that this podcast will grow. Until next time, everyone, stay safe, stay blessed, and remember to innovate honesty and always illuminate the truth. Bye.